Hi everybody, welcome back. It's midweek gel plate play. And if you watched the last video, I was looking at using mica powders, in this case Pearlix powders, with stencils on the gel plate to achieve some of these really quite cool effects you see here, and that was great. So this week this is sort of part 2, and I'm going to extend that by showing you some of the effects that you can get when you pop those mica powders straight onto the gel plate. Some of the different effects you can get, and again I'm going to look at using some masks this time, and also some mark making tools. So if that's something you're keen on, sit back, relax and enjoy. Everybody, I've got my 5x7 gel plate here. I've also got my 8x10, and so we'll be working on both, just so that we can be working on one whilst the layer's drying. Okay, so I've got my box here of mica powders. These happen to be Pearlix ones, but I believe the range of mica powders that Ranger produce can be used in exactly the same way. So first things first, so this week I'm going to show you what happens when you put the powders directly onto the plate without worrying about using a stencil and things like we were doing in part 1 of the video. And I will link that up the top, by the way, so that you can go back and have a look, or it'll be at the end. Alright, so I'm going to choose a couple of powders at random, and let's go for some pinks and maybe a splash of blue. Right. Now, when you're putting powders straight onto the plate like this, you can be really quite deliberate in the patterns that you're putting down, or you can be really quite random and just kind of let the powders do their thing. And one of the things that will impact on the effect you get is what brush you choose to use. So one of the easiest ways to start off is, if you're trying this for the first time, I think, is to grab a fan brush. And I find I have to squeeze it just a little bit to get into, let's pull those so that you can see them, that's it, into the thing. But you just gently have a little bit of powder and let it randomly, I'm tapping my brush so that that powder is just randomly going, letting it fall onto the gel plate. I'm going to do that with several different colours, different places. Put a splash of that really vibrant blue in as well. It's just like paint splattering, really. But then, once I've got it all on there, I'm going to just randomly brush in all different directions and see where it goes. Then you can have a look, you can add a little bit more in. And this creates some wonderful backgrounds. And you can use them for collage, or you can stamp and mark make over the top, all sorts of, you're limited, as I often say, you're only limited by your imagination, really. Alright, I'm just going to a little bit more blue in there. And this is kind of the simplest way to use these beautiful powders on the gel plate. A bit of that darker pink down there. Right, so that's it. You brush them over. You choose a coat of paint. I'm going to do, and obviously you'll get different effects whether you use light or dark. So we'll start off, we'll use a dark. This is a beautiful blue that I treated myself to the other day. Prussian blue hue. There we go. And this is in the Reeves make. Alright. It's a nice even layer, just as you would for most other things. There we go, braille that out, beautiful. Clean off your brush. And listen, I'm not using anything special in terms of paper today. I'm just using some random pieces that I've got lying around. It's a little bit thicker than coffee paper. Came in a bundle I bought from the op shop, so I don't really know what it is. Okay. Normal, make sure it's got good contact all over. You can use your Baron if you've got one. That's quite a cool day here today, so my paints are not drying very quickly. Let's have a little look. That's going to need a bit longer to dry. Right, we'll come back in a minute. Okay, this one's probably been drying for 4 or 5 minutes now, maybe just a little bit longer. So let's have a look and see. Wow, look at that. I'll tip that in the light, you'll be able to see. So you'll notice when you pull with a dark colour, your prints are really quite dramatic. You can make that beautiful, embellished, metallic background. Alright, that was putting things on, the colours on randomly. Let's see what we can do to be a bit more focused. Alright, so that was a really random background. Now, you can of course be more deliberate than that. And again, like I say, the different brushes that you use will give you different colours. Now, I'm just going to work on half of this plate because I don't want huge prints today. And I'm going to use the same colours and just show you some of the effects you can get with different brushes and being more deliberate. So here you can see I've got a flat brush. And I'm literally just drawing circles. Okay, I'm just going to show you something else. So that was a flat brush like that. I'm now going to pick up a tiny little one like this. It's probably a proper name for it. And this one is going to enable me just to put little dots. That'll do for now. Alright, so you can see that. Yeah, okay. I'm going to do exactly the same. I might use a lighter colour this time just to show you the difference. I've got a pale olive green here. That should give us quite a nice bright contrast. And as I say, I'm not using the whole of my plate for this demonstration, just some smaller pieces. Alright, let's pull that one. And again, because it's not very warm here today, I'm going to leave this one to dry. Okay, this one's been sitting for about 5 minutes, so let's have a look. Oh. Caught just a little bit there, but there, can you see? And I think that's probably because I'm using cheap paper. You see those quite deliberate patterns there with the Pearl X powders. And again, you know, you can do whatever you like. I did one earlier which was, to show you, where I was aiming for a tartan effect and also this big swirl. So think about your brush, think about what you want to achieve. All right, let's move on to the next. All right, now obviously using all your different brushes and applying your powders directly onto the plate, you are limited only by your sort of imagination and how much time you want to spend. If you're someone who loves to paint and draw, you could create a whole picture with these powders and then pull it. But the next thing I'm going to show you is using masks. Now, if you put your powders down on the plate and then put masks on and a layer of paint, it's really difficult because if you've got the powder on your gel plate, the masks don't stick. This is something I've found from experience. But these are some little masks I cut on my Cricut machine, and they're just cut from like an acetate. And they're little dragonflies. And I'm just going to place them quite randomly, just to show you what kind of effects you can get. Now, what I'm going to do, so they're pressed down quite well onto the plate, and I'm going to go back to my first method of being quite random when I put the powders on. I'm going to pull out a couple of other colours just for a bit of variety. There's a nice purple there. Oh, that's a different one, I think. Yep. And a bit of a green. Let's see what we get with those. Oh, actually we get this one. This is called a interference green. So again, I'm going to be quite random with my placing of the colours. There we go, but generally that's pretty random. Now, oh, that one moved slightly, never mind. So what you can see I'm doing now is I'm lifting the masks off before I put the paint on. Let's just move those back a little bit so that we don't knock them. Alright, and I'm going to go for a black this time. Really dramatic. Might be a little bit too much. Okay, let's have a look. Just spray a little bit of that off. A bit too much on there. Okay. And there's the other half of this piece of paper. Alright, and again I'm going to leave that to sit for about 5 minutes and then I'll come back and pull it. Okay, once again, left it to dry. Wow, there we go. So wonderful dramatic effect, again using that dark the dark paint to pull, and some gorgeous little dragonfly masks there. Okay, I'm going to do one more with masks, just using some slightly different colours and different masks, just to give you an idea of some of the different effects. And then we'll move on to looking at adding in some mark making, because of course with it, as with any gel print, you can add layers upon layers and do different things. These powders, these mica powders, Pearlix powders, they're just a base, they're just another tool to be using on the gel print. So let's try another mask, and we're going to do the same thing but using some masks, some different masks. Now I don't know how well you can see these. These are little spirals. I might do the whole plate this time, and these are bits that I cut out. They're just cut out bits from a stencil that I was making. So these are the bits that I would push out, and as you can tell I haven't yet used them. You'll be able to see them a bit better once I have. I'm just tipping the plate so that they catch the light and I can see where I've put them. Let's maybe swap that one over there. All will be revealed in a minute. Don't panic. Right, I'm going to stick with these metallics. Okay, I'm just going to check because those two look very similar to me. Aztec Gold. They are. Where's my other one then? I have a different gold somewhere. There we go. Let's swap that out. Okay, I've given this one a few more minutes, and I've taken my acrylic sheet off. I sometimes find that if the paper feels like it's going to tear, I get better results by pulling the plate away from the paper like this, rather than the other way round. Oh, just a little bit there. There we go. Put that back on there. And look at that. Now we've got a little bit of the previous colours there, but wow, how cool is that? I always think that the metallics and that dark red is very regal. Alright, I'm going to do one more for you, and this time we're going to combine the Pearlix powders with some mark making, because as I said, you know, this is just another tool, another layer in your kit of things that you can use on the gel plate, really. So this time I'm going to be again quite random. I'm going to use the metallics. I'm going to pull out my bright red here. And I'm just grabbing my box of mark making materials. Yeah, that's quite random. Let's try this one. Let's have a quick look. What can I see? Okay. I'm going to leave that to dry, then we'll pop another coat of paint on. Okay, that layer is nice and dry. Now, just to show you the difference, and probably because I can't make up my mind, I'm going to pull half of this with a white and half with black, and that way we'll be able to see two different effects using the same technique. Does that make sense? Cool. I'm going to use a different brayer for my white. Ooh, there's some scabby bits in there. Let's get rid of those. That tube of paint might be on its last legs. Ooh. Just a little mix in the middle. Okay, last pull of the day. Let's see what happens. okay folks, a little bit of a camera malfunction. The only thing you've missed is me pulling the gel plate off this last one we've done. So as you can see, this is the white side and the black side. I think I could have done a little bit heavier mark making there. That bright red paint does dry quite quickly, even on a cold day, I discovered. But anyway, you get the idea. So let's have a quick look and see what we've done today. So we started off just with the mica powders on the gel plate, just quite random patterns, pulling with different colours, and then moved on to some more deliberate mark making, really, with different brushes to look at some different effects we could achieve. And I showed you this one and this one, which I'd done previously. And then using masks on the gel plate with the powders. So that was those two. And then this one was with some mark making tools. So there you go folks, I hope that's been inspirational for you, and you'll have a go. Next week I'm going to be looking at and doing some experiments with gilding flakes on the gel plate. So we'll see where that takes us. All right, but for now, thank you for watching folks. If you like what you've seen, please do like and subscribe. That way you get to see my new videos, and other people get to see some of my work too. But for now, thank you for watching. Ka kite anō.